Hey, Constellation community, got Benjamin Diggles here, head of business development for Constellation Network. I know it's been a while since you've seen my face, but rest assured that A, I'm alive, and B, I have been deeply working on some significant things behind the scenes. I'm not one to make a lot of noise about the things I'm working on for obvious reasons at this point, but also there are things that we've signed saying that we wouldn't talk about very specifics within some of these efforts. But the reason I'm posting this video today is just to give a quick summary and update on what we've been doing in the mobility consortium MOBI. Those that know, we were one of the earliest members within the largest mobility consortia in the world, and it consists of three different groups. OEMs kind of being the major car manufacturers like Ford and GM and so forth. The second group would be the suppliers, like the tier one, tier twos, the Denzos and the Bosches of the world. And then the third tier is really predicated around groups like Constellation, blockchain or distributed ledger technology companies. We have been active in a working group that is called the Connected Mobility Data Marketplace for about, I'd say, 6 to 7 months now. And it is a pretty intense experience. I have to be completely honest, I don't have a deep background in mobility. I have some, but I am certainly not at the level of what you would see from like a Denso or a GM. That said, my expertise when it comes to blockchain is really why I'm at the table. Those that have made notice, this week we did push out a research paper. It's very significant, involving Schaeffler and MOBI as co-authors. Big shout out to Sebastian Spitzer, who is our head of mobility ambassador based in Germany. He did the bulk of the work when it came to pulling this paper together. That has been really well received within the consortia. That said, it's really a foundational piece that highlights the problems that we're seeing when it comes to sharing data across different constituents within a mobility ecosystem. We do have pieces that we are going to release that show how we're solving this and really the specifics and where Constellation fits in within this broad ecosystem. And I can't really say ecosystem enough. You're going to hear it a lot because mobility is big. Of course, you have the car, but there's a lot of other major things like user-based insurance, grid vehicle charging. There's like all these different components that make up what is, coined mobility, all the way down to smart parking infrastructure, toll roads, and so forth. So with our role in the Connected Mobility Data Marketplace working group, we've had to really kind of strip down all of those different constituents within this working group. Like, what are all it's been an exhaustive effort, but what are all the different pieces that make a data exchange marketplace possible? Who are all these constituents? What are their requirements? What are everything down to the schemas for each sensor, LiDAR sensors, GPS sensors, drive shaft sensors, head unit sensors. I mean, like, all of these different components that make up just even a car have methodologies in which they collect data and then they transmit it to other constituents within that connected ecosystem. And so we've had to really kind of strip down, like, what are the requirements of, say, a GPS sensor when you think about latitude and longitude and time and date. And there's like a few different components that make up the universal GPS sensors, and what pieces of that data schema need to be put on an immutable ledger and what doesn't. And if it is put on an immutable ledger, how is that then communicated within an architecture framework of how all these different components come together that really come down to two major things. One, of course, being security. We want to ensure that data that comes in is not spoofed or corrupted or cannot be accessed by a nefarious party to cause problems. But then also the IP, making sure there's that provenance and lineage back to the data creator, so that no matter where it is consumed or ingested beyond the car, that they get the credit for it. And it gets much, much more complicated than that, but that's at least at a high level you can understand kind of the inner workings from data in, data out, and why it's important for us to create standards for how a Toyota on the road, transmits or communicates this data to a Ford. Right now, there's kind of a stalemate, if you will, when it comes to that practice, because there's not a lot of incentive for Toyota to share that if it can be duplicated or their data can be stolen, because the IP of that data is rather important, but also the security. If somebody takes over that data while it's being transmitted and takes control of a car, they could cause insurmountable catastrophes. As we look at an autonomous network in the future, there's really about 6 levels of autonomous driving, I would say, requirements to hit. And what that means is some of you out there may have cars that have some of these autonomous capabilities. I mean, you've seen, of course, on commercials, cars that can self-park and a lot of other cool features that don't require human interaction. That said, to get to what is a level 5, where you may even remove like a steering wheel or even the brake and gas pedals from the car, a truly autonomous vehicle, I mean, that requires some significant standards to ensure that people don't die. And to that point, when it comes to accident-related deaths, number 1 in the world is poison or things that have to do with medications, and then 2 is cars. Cars kill about 1.5 million people a year, so it's a problem that is not just about market opportunity, but really about saving human lives and creating a safer, world for all of us. So we've been heavy at work with this. We're partnered up with groups in this working group with companies like General Motors and Denso, Accenture, IBM, Ocean Protocol, and Ford. I mean, we're talking some heavy hitters here. And since the ecosystem is so large, Constellation has really carved out one area that we wanted to kind of plant a flag, because we could really get analysis paralysis where we could apply our architecture, our technology, or the hypergraph to so many different use cases around secure data exchanges. We have carved out, and we'll be sharing more of this here, kind of a productized or operationalized approach around LiDAR and image data. And the reason we picked that is because that's one area that everyone in the working group in the broader mobility ecosystem has kind of had a little bit of a head scratching around, is how do you handle such large data in an environment like that to make quick decisions. So a good use case example is if you think about a car accident taking place. Say, there's a car up in front of the car you're driving, and it hits something and it's bad, and this car senses, the LiDAR and the camera data sees this and knows this. How does it prioritize that data to ensure that it course corrects the car, has the lineage for the insurance in a real-time environment? And right now, since that data is so big, it's really tough to handle. I mean, to get that validation or the approval that that data can course correct the car, that has to go through a 4 or 5G network up to a centralized server. The decision's made, it's sent back down. By the time that decision is made, you're a part of the accident. We need to really bring to fruition edge computing and validate that data as quickly as possible. And Constellation has been seen as a true leader in that one use case. So while we talk mobility, we really want to think about big data and where we fit in securing that large data set around LiDAR and image data in a very meaningful way. So we will be releasing some papers that show our methodology of how we're doing this. Wyatt has done a great job in authoring some pieces that we've already put out into the mobility community that have gotten a lot of great response, and we're driving towards owning that one use case. And so I just wanted to give a little bit of an update, because this has been something that we haven't really been talking about, but we've put a lot of effort into, and we've made a ton of headway. And this standard that's going to come out here pretty soon, it's being written right now. Like I said, I've been working in this working group for a while. This will be a requirement, much like an FCC requirement for a device to communicate. They have to follow those FCC standards to go to market, or else it's against the law. And so if a car wants to hit, like, say, a level 5 autonomy, and where it is truly an autonomous vehicle, they're going to be required to use a standard in which Constellation co-authored. And furthermore, that one piece when it comes to to LiDAR and image data, we will have the leading solution for vendors to grab a hold of and deploy within their environment. So it's a long tail play, but it really validates where we fit in this market, especially when it comes to mobility. So anyway, just wanted to send some hype and let you guys know that this is very exciting, and wanted to demystify it a little bit. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, but I'll keep checking in with more updates in the future. Much love to all of you, and let's keep on going.